You have turned down the flashy success that people just want to brag about and share about and post about, all in favor of going deeper and impacting the people that we touch. That to me has been one of the most selfless things that I've learned from you.
We have both wanted to call it quits on JLIN like so many times. You know how much work it has taken us to get to this place. Linsanity was such a gift from God. Like whatever business opportunities that came from that, you wanted them to be mission driven and impact driven.
This was kind of a trip down memory lane with the one person that has helped me and my brand out the most in my entire career.
We weren't kind of growing a brand just to grow a brand. We were really trying to use that fame and that wealth towards building a company that might encourage other people, that might provide opportunities for other people the same way that you were given this opportunity for Linsanity. A lot of what you're trying to think of as their team is how do you leverage the fame and the opportunities that they have that will go past their athletic career.
There's so much success in building a team. There's so much success in doing things the right way. There's so much success in having work-life balance. That was a great reminder for me. I want to take that in with me as I go forward. Today we have a very, very, very special guest, Patricia Sun. She's the CEO of JLIN LLC, the company that runs the entire JLIN brand. She is also the board president of the Jeremy Lin Foundation. She is my sister-in-law. She graduated from UCLA. Fight. I think that's how it goes, right? Is that how it goes?
So yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know how you know that.
I don't know. Executive producer of the Emmy Award-winning 30 at the Garden documentary. Thanks for joining us, and we're excited to kind of have your knowledge be dropped to all the viewers.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk through what we do and our journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great place to start is for the journey, like how did it all start?
So how we started working together is at the time of Linsanity, when everything happened, you all of a sudden were faced with a huge amount of opportunities and you needed sort of a team to kind of help. And it was kind of crazy because at the time I remember watching the Toronto Raptors game and Josh and I, that was an away game. So we had these, was that the third game of the Linsanity run?
I think it was the sixth.
Six? Okay.
Yeah.
So we had watched all of these kind of crazy games, and Toronto was Valentine's Day. Josh and I were on a Valentine's Day date, I think at like Mermaid Inn in the East Village. And there was very much this like mindset of like, oh, like, is it time for this to calm down just a little bit? Like, it's okay if like, not that we weren't like rooting for you, but we were kind of like, dang, this thing is keep getting crazier and crazier. And we were watching the game while we're like having Valentine's Day dinner. And I remember being like, oh, like, you're checking the score towards the end and was like, oh, okay, like, dang, it's a close game. Like, this might be the one that they lose. Like, that's okay. He still played really well, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, oh my God, he just hit the game winner. And it was just like, we were like, okay, like, this is not ending. This is, if anything, like, even bigger. And I remember, like, at that time, because it had already been, we were so happy for you. Like, it was so much fun, but it was also extremely overwhelming, right? Like, I think you remember reporters were showing up at dental school asking for Josh. Like we were kind of like in lockdown in our apartment with you because we're all just kind of like, this is so crazy. Like, I don't know, this talk show is calling and that talk show. And like, we were just kind of like, man, like we could use some time to catch our breath. And so this crazy thing happened. I remember feeling very like, oh my gosh, like, is Jeremy's career going to be like, is this ride going to be just like we're just going to be like on the sidelines of this ride, because this is like a ride that is so big and so crazy and has already affected us in so many ways in this short amount of time. I remember like actually talking to Josh about like, do you think like God's plan is for just some people, like for us to be kind of like periphery to Jeremy, for like is that our story? And anyway, I'm not sure if I'm like capturing this well, but basically what I was trying to say is like, oh wow, like this was really overwhelming and I didn't know if like God was doing this amazing thing in your life and we were all like so happy for you. And I was kind of like, I wonder what this means for like us, like for like is God still seeing us and like what our roles on kind of like the sidelines here. I think it was like a few days after that you kind of asked me, like maybe that day, like I don't know, you came back from Toronto, and then you asked me like, will you be my manager, or like will you help me with JLIN? And I think that was just like, it felt like a direct response to that prayer to God, where I was just kind of like, hey, what do you have in plan for like the rest of us, because this is a lot. And yeah, like I think that has like really grounded me in a lot of ways moving forward, because there are a lot of things that are about working with family that are not easy and are not like super fun. But I really felt like in that moment, like God was sort of answering something to me, which is like, there is something in this journey that I see for you. And this is not like you and everyone in this story is not forgotten. And I think that was, yeah, kind of the genesis of you asking me to start working with you on JLIN. And I think the other thing I always want to make sure people know is that your mom had already set up a lot of like what we work on, and she had a lot of foresight into setting up JLIN and the Jeremy Lin Foundation, and we sort of like worked together to take it over from there. And I really respect, the foresight that she had in kind of setting that up.
Yeah, and I remember it was wild because I stayed on you and my brother Josh's couch for 6 weeks, and at this time you were kind of so earlier you had made it into med school. You deferred that so that you wouldn't have to be long distance with my older brother, and you had just gotten into a public health program at Columbia, and you're in New York City, but that hadn't really started, and all of a sudden insanity happens. And I remember my brother Josh calling me like, "Hey, I think you used some help. You know, Patricia, she can just help in whatever way." And as we started to work together, you became kind of the go-to person for everything, just because I don't know how. Like this wasn't your background. You were a biochem major, but you just have like this unique genius about understanding brands and storytelling and different things. And so you just made a complete like hard pivot to something that you had never really done before, but something you're very, very talented at. And so that's how it all started. And there's a lot of confusion around like when people think about the Jalen brand off the court, pretty much the only thing that some people talk about or think exists is the Jeremy Lin Foundation, my foundation work. But there's actually a lot more beyond just that, although that is a huge part of what we do. Can you kind of explain to just maybe the casual fan, what is the JLIN LLC? Like, what does this company do? What does this brand do?
Yeah. So I think, it's a credit to how well known you are for your philanthropy and how generous you've been that people often think of the Jeremy Lin Foundation when they think of your work. But the reality is that every athlete, has a lot of business opportunities and a brand. Whether or not consider yourself a brand, every athlete has sort of like a brand and a reputation and a platform to manage. And most athletes have a team that is helping them with a lot of that. So for us, JLIN LLC is a mission driven company that sort of manages your brand and your platform, and also strategizes and tries to maximize sort of the business opportunities that come up with having that brand and platform. For a lot of athletes, because an athletic career is very short, a lot of what you're trying to think of as their team is how do you leverage the fame and the opportunities that they have into their retirement? How do you build a sustainable sort of stream of income for them that will go past their athletic career? And so we started thinking about that from day one, even though Linsanity, Linsanity like really kind of changed your life financially. But we were always sort of looking at, you're not going to be an athlete forever. How do we set you up for a career or the opportunities that you want after Linsanity? And you were very intense. And I think we really aligned on your vision that Linsanity was such a gift from God. Like whatever business opportunities that came from that, you wanted them to be mission driven and impact driven. And so what that means is like we weren't kind of growing a brand just to grow a brand. We were really trying to use that fame and that wealth towards building a company that might encourage other people, that might provide opportunities for other people the same way that you were given this opportunity for Linsanity. So in a lot of ways, the ethos behind JLIN is not that different than the Jeremy Lin Foundation in terms of like all of it is sort of rooted in your faith and your desire to see the next generation thrive, your desire to love on people, but we do it from more of a business perspective, while Jeremy Lin Foundation does it through philanthropy.
So you talked about mission driven. What is the mission of the JLIN brand and the JLIN company? What is that one thing that really drives us and gives us the ultimate purpose? And the reason why I ask you, almost ironically, is because you put me through a very difficult but super, super important exercise for 18 months of figuring out with you what this mission was going to be. So I'll let you take it away
Yeah.
from here.
Yeah. And the mission that I think we ended up at, which came from you, was to redefine love. And you can also explain it as well. But I think to redefine love was this idea that, we all, that there is so much in this world that, we misunderstand what it really means to like love and serve each other. And that even through business, that there are ways that we can, whether in the decisions that we make, the strategy of like how we position you, how we serve sort of the people that follow this platform or that we work with, or that we can sort of love people through that.
This concept of redefining love, basically, I kind of always felt like love is very shallowly thrown and casually thrown out around the world. Like, I love this, I love you, I love this food, I love this sports team. But the more that I felt like I read the Bible, the more that I felt like I experienced God's love, I was like, this is not the casual, shallow, superficial love that a lot of the world kind of talks about the word love as. It's love is very, very sacrificial. Love is very, very difficult. Love is tremendously like persevering through lots of adversity. And oftentimes, like, it's, we think that, oh, I love you because of all your positives, but I feel like true love is actually, I love you despite all of your negatives, despite all your imperfections, despite all of the things you are going to do to hurt me, I will still love you. And that's the love that Jesus gave to us. That's the love that we want to give to the rest of the world. We are very imperfect at it, and we only try to give little snippets, as much as humanly possible, little snippets of Jesus's love to the world in different ways. And so that was kind of the genesis of this ethos that we have, is how can we redefine love for the next generation so that when they experience love through the JLIN brand, it will be this deep, sacrificial, transformative type of love. Um, that's a lot of fluff, right? Like, that sounds very, airy. So when people, when fans talk to me, they often talk about my philanthropic work. They talk about my foundation. But what a lot of people don't realize is there's also another entity, the JLIN LLC, which you are the CEO of. So, what is the difference between Jeremy Lin Foundation and JLIN LLC?
Okay, so the biggest difference between JLIN LLC and the Jeremy Lin Foundation is that the Jeremy Lin Foundation is focused on philanthropy, and JLIN LLC is focused on mission-driven business. So with any athlete, you have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things in business and in strategy and PR. And what we do is we try to approach all of those things with some of the same ethos that you might approach Jeremy Lin Foundation. And we sort of set the culture and the strategy for everything that happens on the business side. So, for example, like on the business side, some of the things that we do is we work with like the directors for 30 at the Garden or for Linsanity. Like those are documentaries that JLIN helps make happen. So those are, for-profit things that we believe can have like a really big impact. A lot of all of your endorsements and in like business partnerships that we have, your relationship with X Step, with the Bay Area Breakers, with different companies that we believe are doing good work. Those kind of run under JLIN LLC. We also sort of manage like your investments, and we're working on a fund right now that's focused on Southeast Asian founders and on loving the founders. But those are all sort of things that might fall under JLIN LLC as the business.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I think people just kind of see like, oh, he does this, he does that, but like to be able to group it all under one umbrella, which is the JLIN LLC. I mean, whether it's lifestyle, what I'm wearing right now, Palladium, or my basketball shoes, X-Tep. We even have like, healthier teas. We brought healthier teas and healthier pizza into China with, different ingredients that are, more natural, more organic. And then obviously like those documentaries that you mentioned and the social media, the podcast, the YouTube videos, even for us, like recently, we kind of talked about Xavier and Lee and put a lot of content around him and amplifying other athletes, up and coming athletes, even during March Madness. That's all a part of the storytelling. What you touched on too with Robert and the Capital Studio, that's super exciting. It's an impact investing fund focused on like using for-profit investments to really love the next generation, to be really making a strong impact, but not just on like making returns, but also loving the founders and the people who are part of this business. These are all kind of different ways, like you said, which they're little mindset shifts or maybe a little bit of nuance that we try to just be as intentional as we can. And hopefully when we finish the endorsement or the business partnership or the storytelling or the investments, that like the people working with us will feel like, oh, that was different. Like I felt a little bit more love than maybe I normally do. Like one thing that we've heard through the impact investing is when we talk to founders, one of the questions that we ask that always catches them off guard is, how are you doing? And they're like, what? Like, how are you doing? Like, I thought this is like an investor call. Like, don't you want to know my like ROI or like how quickly my business is scaling? You want to know how I'm doing personally? And that's been just something as simple as that. That's been really like, oh, I really appreciate that you asked. So these are all like different ways that JLIN LLC is operating and working. And, um, you know, that is probably like when I say you are so uniquely gifted and talented at this, it's that you manage all of it, right? You manage all of this stuff. You manage, I have 3 agency groups, and you manage all of those agency groups. I have 2 different social media teams. We have social media platforms across different territories, and they all operate differently. We have so many different things going on in so many different places, yet are still like the brains and that person that connects it all together so that everything is built towards one direction of redefining love. Um, that takes a ton of mental headspace for you. And we've talked a lot about, work-life balance and just like how much you're storing in your brain and how much, effort it requires. What would you say is kind of your biggest joys or your proudest moments in the 12 years that you have been working and running and leading JLIN LLC?
Yeah. I think for me, like you said, like there's a lot going on under our brand. A lot of that speaks to like the reach that your story is able to have, and that the work that you've put in to sort of like really trying to take care of like all the fans across the world, that we have. And I think some of my proudest moments, because I don't do this alone, right? So we have a really strong team, from Robert to Tiffany to Poto to AM and MVP. Like we have a really strong team that we work with. And I think some of my most joyous moments are when sort of like it feels like the team is hitting on all cylinders. Like when we are able to sort of complement each other, with a platform like this, I think it often can feel very siloed, like everyone's work is kind of separate from each other. And I think that can feel like, for me as a leader, that's, I think, when it starts to feel, especially if it starts to feel like different things are competing for your attention or your time. The things that give me the most joy are, some of the bigger projects that we've undertaken, or Asia trips that we've undertaken, where it has felt like all hands on deck and everyone knows like what they're contributing to, and everyone is like in their zone of like, here's where I'm like really helping the team. I think that has been my greatest sources of joy. So even like when you and I hit our stride in terms of like, what are you, Jeremy, uniquely gifted at as a leader, and how do I complement that? I think those are some of my favorite times, because there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. There's a lot of healthy conflict. There's a lot of discussions. There's a lot of, I think all of us are tempted by scarcity mindset, right? Like there's a lot of like, okay, like if Jeremy does that, what if he doesn't do this? Or like if he focuses and if he plays in this league, then what happens to that league? Like what happens to these fans? Like there's just a lot of, it can start to get very like, oh no, I might not have enough resources. And I think when we're all in a place where like that's, so for me, my job, I think a lot of it is to address that and to build that trust across the team and find the right team that buys into that is as mission driven as us. And when we are kind of in that, like that has given me some of my greatest joys.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of chime in as well, because obviously asking you, you know, you're going to be very humble about it. But also from my side, like some of the things that I'm most proud or most joyful that I've seen you accomplish, I think like first and foremost, you've made me a much better person. You've challenged me so much. You are so direct, and your big thing, like you're so big on authenticity and integrity, right? So it's like you don't want me to get credit for something, or this brand to get credit for something that is inauthentic. And like because I'm from the Bay Area and I went to Harvard and I'm Asian, like I may have like, I mean, like sometimes people assume certain things of me that aren't all the way true, and give me more credit in terms of, oh, he must understand. He's very like, what, but like, I think for you, you've always challenged me and just made me a better person. One of the biggest things, and that we've talked a lot about is just my journey with my identity, my ethnicity. Like you pretty much single-handedly pushed like you really need to understand Asian American issues, Asian American history. Like you need to understand these much more. Your understanding of oppression or systemic injustice is just very uh, non-existent, or very small. Like if you really want to take on these causes or be a champion, if you want to champion these causes or be a mouthpiece, or a spokesperson for certain things, like you need more depth. And that is something that I give you a ton of credit for. And that's been, huge for me.
I think, to your credit, and I'm not trying to like, this is
Oh my
not trying to
gosh, you're
deflect.
you're deflecting.
But I honestly think like one of the things that makes this work is that you are open to feedback. And I think that is something that like from the beginning you were never sort of like, I have to be. In fact, I think you actively tried not to be the smartest person in the room. I think that's something you have talked
It
about
wasn't that
before.
hard.
But I think it takes a lot of humility and a lot of like, I mean, you've said this, like you are very thick-skinned. You actually like welcome feedback to a amount that is like, sometimes you need to take praise more than you take feedback, but you have really welcomed feedback into so many areas of your life. And so I never had to tiptoe around like, hey, if you say you're going to be this, you need to know more about this. Or like, if you want to really be effective here, you really have to, or you should apologize for this, things like that. I think you have, yeah, like you have not put your identity in like, oh no, like I am the I know it all for the team. And I really like, I think that cannot be overstated because this doesn't work without that. It doesn't matter what team you bring on if you're not open to the feedback. And I think you have taught me a lot about how to take feedback myself. Like as a leader, it was a really hard journey to, and there were so many blind spots that I have that, and so much inexperience that I had. And I think you really taught me like how to just take feedback on that and not be too precious about myself. And like, I think that's, I really value that about our relationship and about our culture. So,
No, I appreciate that. Um, and another thing that I also wanted to highlight was that you're the type of leader that tries to uplift and give everybody reporting to you like shine. I've played for a lot of different coaches and a lot of different superstar teammates, and the ones that are the most insecure or egotistical, like they have to turn everything into something about themselves and themselves getting credit and themselves getting glory. And you know, it's just like it's exhausting to be under that type of leadership, truthfully. And your leadership has been like, there's so many people that report to you, and you're always trying to figure out like, how do I position them as well as I can so that they can like basically like one day go and do their own thing or like take over this, like basically it's like how can I it's not like, oh, you're contingent on me every day you got to come to me, it's that saying. It's like every day you got to come to me and I'm going to give you fish to eat, and so you're always like dependent on me. You're trying to teach them how to fish, and so at some point they can just go and do their own thing. And like I think that's the ultimate mark of a leader, is that it's not about yourself. You're not indispensable. And one day, like the people that you're pouring into and investing into, like they will go off and do amazing things. They may even surpass you, and that's okay, right? Like I think that is a huge part of the culture. I have heard time and time again, different people who have worked with us or partnered with us. They have said like, I absolutely love working for JLIN LLC, especially within the last like 5 years or 6 years when we really made like a shift. And we had like we transformed our, like we basically like had a whole new wave of personnel, and like that new batch or the new team that came through, like they're all like, man, like I can't tell you how much of a breath of fresh air this is from my previous jobs, from my previous bosses. Like I just love working for you, and I've literally heard that from like everybody who's worked under you for the last like 5 to 6 years. And so that's a huge credit. And like the fact that like you have a brand and your brand is making impact, but the people under you are happy, they have work-life balance, they enjoy being here, they feel seen and heard by their boss. Like, I mean, that's like such a testament to what you've done.
thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I don't think I've always been that way. Like that has been a journey, and
For sure.
I still don't think I get it right like all the time. And so I really appreciate that. But that is the type of boss or leader I hope to be. Um, I think, one of the things that we've talked about a lot about is like imposter syndrome, right? And I think for me, one of the things that I've struggled with in empowering others or in trying to be a leader that empowers others is that, by nature of like me being in this position and like a lot of the things that I encountered as a woman in leadership, as an Asian American in leadership, as your sister-in-law in leadership is, like not maybe being discounted in a lot of ways from the get-go or feeling like I needed to earn a certain amount of respect. And I think we've both encountered that, right, in our work lives. And I think this balance between like how do you sort of defer and empower others, like the difference between deferring and deflecting and not sort of standing up for yourself and empowering others. Like how do you sort of view that difference? Because I find that can be very tricky. Or for myself, that has been very tricky to find that differentiation.
Yeah, I mean, in a basketball analogy, which we've talked a lot about, is like if I'm the best player on my team, my job is to make everybody around me better, meaning I'm empowering everybody, right? Like truly great players make everyone around them better because you can't go that far by yourself. That's just a fundamental like principle of doesn't matter if it's sports or whatever. Good leaders make everyone around them better. But at the same time, like good players also have to know when to take over. And there's a time and a place to empower, distribute the ball, to let everybody do their thing and feel free and ready and to have the space to kind of do what they do. If you have shooters, if you have a great pick and roll, or a person who can set a screen and roll really hard to the bat, you got to make sure they get their touches and they do their thing. And then there comes times when you have to go and take over and be a killer and just get it done any which way. And I think that's such a tough balance to strike. We are going to mess up so many times. I'm going to mess up all the time as a basketball player. You're going to mess up all the time as a businesswoman. But the heart, the intentionality behind it, and the integrity behind it, like I think your track record speaks for itself, and the people who have worked for you is the best proof of evidence of who you are as a leader. And so, um, I mean, imposter syndrome. I mean, me being Asian and going to a non-Asian industry, it's like, what am I doing here? You being an Asian woman in a sports industry, you're in the room with like the heads of these major sports business or these billionaire like team owners and they're looking at you and they're like they literally, I mean, this has happened like hundreds of times where it's like, oh, that's your assistant, like, oh, that's your secretary, like, oh, that's your manager, and they're just like, oh, like, and it's like almost like you get numb to it after a while, but it's actually like kind of very disrespectful. But you have had to fight and claw for your respect in so many different meetings and so many different places, and everybody just sees you as like, oh, like that's the assistant, like, and you're the CEO, you're like you're the brains of this whole brand to the point where like I understand it so much how valuable you are to this brand that like you have equity of this company, like you have it's like for equity wise, it's basically just me and you. And like that's how much I believe in what you've done. And I've said this time and time again behind closed doors, and this is my first time saying it publicly that like this brand and what we've done is as much your brand as it is my brand. I'm the face of it, but behind all of that, you have definitely been the brains. You have been the person that has been making the right pushes and leading this whole thing and just like weaving this whole thing together. And that's and then like at the end of it all, the praise comes to me because the fans are like, dude, I love what you do. They're like, I love what you do off the court. You're such a great role model. I want my kids to learn from you. We love everything that we like they give me a lot of praise, but a lot of that is actually the work that you're doing and leading. So huge shout out to you for that. So we've talked a lot about the JLIN LLC and all the work that's been done. What do you think differentiates us from maybe another athlete or entertainer's brand?
Yeah. I mean, I think from the get-go, like your identity and who you reached was very unique. Like there were, the fact that we are still sort of like a global brand, and there are things that you touch on in Asia that to a depth that I think it's very hard for people from coming from America to always do in Asia. Like I think that is something that is complex about our brand and our work. It adds a lot of difficulty to our work, but it is something that is also very beautiful. I think being able to do um, and spend the time that we've spent in Asia and to really like honor that part of your identity, I think has been really meaningful. Um, I mean, I think one of the things that you and I are both like kind of very proud of or in awe of is that Linsanity, when you actually look at it, was like a very short moment in time. The like sports wise accomplishment, like that was, I mean, I think your NBA career is still very much to be admired, and it's not like not many people play 9 years in the NBA. But at the same time, like Linsanity in a lot of ways, like when people think of like superstar status playing, that was like a shorter period of time. But the impact and the way that this brand has been able to sort of, I guess, build off of that, and the way that that still resonates with people, and the way that we can still sort of leverage that to impact others and to, I think that speaks a lot to like the amount of work that we have put in, that you have put in, the amount of care that we have put in into doing this the right way. I think that is something that is very unique about our brand. Like the level of reach with sort of what we're working with, I think is very impressive.
I mean, obviously I understand because it's like I don't think people understand how hard it is to like have social media in the US and, and in China because it's two completely like everything that you can use in the US is not allowed in China. Everything that touches China, the US doesn't see. So it's like literally two times the work. And what's trending and what works in the US is not what works in China. And for us to be able to maintain all the different things from social media to endorsements to business partnerships to philanthropy, to be able to do that, it's literally twice the work. It's twice the work, and that's exhausting. And that is, and so to me, it's you're talking about like the ability to reach different territories and essentially this is something that you've talked a lot about is like how do we be a bridge, how can we are uniquely positioned to be a really good bridge. And it's funny because I always went into everything like with this like pity party mindset where I always you're the number one person I complain to about this. I'm like, okay, when I was in the US growing up playing basketball, it was always like, oh, that's the Asian guy. And so I was like, oh, when I'm in America, nobody thinks I'm American. And then I go to the CBA and then they're like, oh, you're a foreigner, right? Like you have local and then you have foreigner. You have only those two statuses. And I was, even though like I'm Asian, and I'm Asian skinned and Asian blood, like I was considered a foreigner. And so they're like, oh, that's the foreigner, right? Like that's a foreigner. He's a white ren is the word. Then I went to the P League and started playing there. And then like there I'm considered a local, but I'm an ABC local. So I'm not really like a local. And so I always complain to you like, dude, it always feels like wherever I'm at, they always call me something else, right? Like if I'm like out west, they're like, oh, you're east. If I'm out east, they're like, oh, you're west. And then you always like say like, well, that gives you a chance to be a bridge, right? And that's what this brand and how we try to love and how we try to really humanize the different hemispheres, like that has been really really challenging, really really fruitful, and really really purposeful. And so in addition to the width, the one thing that I think you have done a great job of and what sets us apart is also the depth, right? Like I cannot tell you how many times you have told me I would rather do less but go deeper in philanthropy and all these things. You have continually turned down bigger metrics, bigger followers, more social engagement. You have turned down the flashy success that people just want to brag about and share about and post about, all in favor of going deeper and impacting the people that we touch more, like more deeply. And that to me has been one of the most selfless things that I've learned from you. Cause I used to, I'm not gonna lie, like when I was getting into social media, it was like, we need likes, we need reshares, we need followers. Like, like, and you're always like, that doesn't really matter as much. Like the people that it could be 10 people instead of 100 people, but if those 10 people are deeply impacted, that's more powerful. So,
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
the
mean,
depth is, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I will like we still want to be like very impactful, right? But to the point that you said,
Yeah,
I think
I still like lots of views.
yeah, still make these videos go viral, please. But I think like to I mean, a couple of things come to mind. I think like first with the global piece, like it's been really challenging. Like there are many times where we're like, should we just focus on the US? Should we just focus on, what I don't know, you feel so fragmented often, right? And I think that honestly is part of the Asian American experience. Like we are able to adapt to a lot of different environments as immigrant children, but we might never actually feel fully a sense of belonging in a lot of different spaces. And we have learned how to carve out places of belonging for ourselves, but we've also learned how to turn that not feeling fitting in. You have learned to turn that into a strength on the court too, right? Like it allows you to work with so many different people, to learn from so many different mindsets, and to bridge a lot of different communities. And I think that has been something that has been tricky because I think business wise, we would love to just focus and not, not be distracted. And like we talk a lot about prioritization and how to figure that out. And it's almost like this puzzle that is like not ever going to be fully solved, but like we're constantly balancing. So I think that's one thing that, I think we've learned can be a strength, and to not kind of continue to just be bummed about how hard that can be. Um, the other thing you're talking about in terms of like reach and depth, like I said, like we still love, we still want things to do well. That's not, but I think when I look back on our sort of work together on like JLIN and what we've done, there are not many things where I'm sort of my overwhelming feeling is, oh, we should have done more, or we should have gone for that bigger thing. I don't know how you feel, but that I rarely actually feel that. I don't even know if I can think of something that I'm like, oh, we should have done that thing. Actually, like more of my, what could we have done? It's like, I wish we could have learned joy faster. I wish we could have rested more. I wish we could have spent, like, I wish we could have gotten to healthier relationships faster. That's the things that I like, but the things of like the video that could have gone viral, the business partnership that could have been $100 million, like those things I feel come and go. Like those things don't necessarily make or break everything. And so, I mean, maybe what it was is chasing like being the top. When you're in Linsanity, you get a certain number of views on your videos and those start to go down. Like, but chasing that, I think never felt meaningful to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's been so important. I mean, there's one simple analogy of like, I remember when, the foundation, we were trying to uplift, whether it was APOM or Black History Month or even just like highlighting grantees, and we would post on my account, on my Instagram account, and like the likes and the engagement and everything were just so low. And I remember coming to you being like, yo, this is kind of like messing up my metrics.
My
Like,
track record.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, like, I don't know, like we do once a week and, and then you like snap back and you're like, do you know how impactful these are for our grantees? Like, yeah, maybe it's 1,000 likes, but our grantees time and time again are just effusive saying, thank you for posting it. Oh, because of that, we've had multiple calls. We've been able to fund more resources, and we've gotten more awareness. And now this person is thinking about partnering us with this. Like, thank you so much. And like, that was when I was like, and there's so many of those types of moments of just like you giving me more wisdom, a deeper perspective, and just being like, man, this is so much bigger than the surface level things that you may see, right? Like another analogy to tie it into sports is like if every athlete tried to be like the top scorer, because truthfully in basketball, points, like that's what gets you the most clout, that's the flashiest. If every person on your team was trying to go for points, you would be a horrible team. Like you can only have like two, maybe three guys who are really like elite point scorers, and everyone else has to play a role. And that's the only way that you're going to win. And some people don't even show up on the stats. They're just defenders, communicators, do the intangibles, and like, you have always, to me, like the equivalent, drawing that analogy to the brand is like, do not just go for the points. Like there's rebounds, there's assists, there's defense, there's coverages, there's diving on the floor for loose ball. Like there's so many other things that make this valuable, and like just don't go for what's flashy. And I'm not gonna lie, there's many times when I'm like, oh, we should do this, we do that. Like, but like you said, when at the end of it now, when I think back on it, I don't really think about like, oh, that video hit 150 million, or this thing did like, you know what I mean? Like, I think about like the fan who wrote me a letter that was like, I was ready to kill myself because my depression was so bad. And then because of, something that you shared or like that I read, like it brought me out of it, and now I'm doing so much better, and I'm living, and I'm alive, and I'm moving for like, like that. And that type of deep impact, or those stories that we've been able to hear from some of the fans, they don't come from like these viral funny videos, like they don't come from that. And so that's been a really like big challenge and perspective shift that, I'm always trying to like understand more of.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's one of the ways that we complement each other too, right? Like I do think like there's a time and a place for like when you first came to me and you were like, I want to do this like celebrity game in China. My mind was like, that is so much work. That is so like you had this like, and like a year later we pulled it off, and it's been one of the most impactful things that we've done. But like you have like there is a time and a place to dream big and to be like, oh, these are like huge metrics, I want to hit them. And then there is also kind of like the methodical, like how do we like operate with depth and meaning, and like how do we say no to the right things. And I think our partnership has really allowed us to have those healthy conversations and bring in different kind of perspectives so that we're not only sort of leaning on one side.
Yeah. And I think that's, early on we got into a lot of conflict and we disagreed a lot because I always came with ideas and big dreams and big visions, and you would always like seemingly rain on my parade or like shut that party down. And I was just like, dude, this would be great. We could do it. Like, let's shoot for the sky. And you'd be like, no, like that's not realistic. That's not practical, or da da da, right? Like even after we accomplished some really big things, you would always after be like, but like we're all burnt out, and for a week we couldn't even like, we just had to rest for a week, and we couldn't even like, like our family lives are all like struggling right now because we stretch ourselves so thin. Like, was it worth it? And so like something that really shifted for us maybe 5 or 6 years into working together too was when you told me like, at the top of every successful company, there's usually a visionary and there's usually an executioner. The visionary can't get what they dream of without the executioner. The executioner can't execute such a great plan without a visionary. And that these two are integral and they have to work well side by side. And that's what makes these companies go. And that like made me see you in a whole different light, where I was just like, you're not trying to like shoot down every idea. You're just trying to figure out like, what can we actually turn from this like vague concept into a reality, and what are the things that we should sign up for so that we don't just keep dreaming and trying a bunch of things and never completing anything, right? Like what are the things that we really want to shoot for, go for, and eventually execute to the point where it comes to fruition. And that's something that you've definitely taught me, is like slow down, observe, ask questions, be intentional, and like just take step by step by step by step. Don't get distracted. Don't move on to the flavor of the month. Like, we committed to this, let's keep doing it. Like those are some of the things that you've really helped me, so that like I can follow through on different things, whether it's mental health or whatever, like all the different angles that we have been doing.
Yeah. No, I think we've grown a lot in terms of like, I think anyone who has a co-founder or like a partner in a relationship, like it is a lot of work to not see the other person as like just an opposing force to what you're trying to do or your way of doing things, but to really embrace kind of like what is great about that other person and why you kind of work. You don't want to work with people that are just totally like yourself. Like I think you have taught me to iterate faster and to not be okay or to not worry about failing. And it's okay if we try it and fail, and vice versa. Like, I've slowed you down in some ways where, maybe we were doing things just for the sake of doing things. And so, yeah, like, I think that's been, I think at the heart of, like, the thing about a brand that revolves around a person is that at the end of the day, there are still people in this brand, right? Like, we still have to sort of use the mindset of, like, how do we protect your longevity as a person and as an individual. One of the things that we did to do that was, like, you stopped reading social media. Like, as an individual with a brand, it is impossible for you to read everything that people say about you and not let it affect you. And so you were very wise about this in the beginning, where you were kind of like, and you went through some traumatic stuff. I think you talk about this a little bit, of, like, when you sort of scrolled social media after a big playoff turnover or something like that, and how that affected you and the trauma from that. I think you early on was like, okay, like, I'm not the one who should be reading my social media. And so you trusted us to sort of be the ones that were on top of these things and to kind of synthesize for you the things that you needed to hear. I think that was one of the most impactful things that we did to sort of maintain your mental health as a person in the middle of all of this. And that is kind of a big none of this none of this of growing JLIN and, like, JLIN Foundation, like, none of that really matters if you as a person are not healthy and authentic and involved and, like, happy with what we're doing at the middle of it. So, yeah, like, I think when you ask about, like, what are we proud of, I think that's another thing that as a family, I think we're very proud of, is that 12 years in, you are still, like, the same person. 12 years into JLIN, like, 15 years into the career. You're still the same person. You have your family, like, you have a private life that you can protect, that is not sort of up for consumption. Like, I think those are all things that, as a team, like, I feel very proud that, we have been able to maintain that. So,
Actually,
yeah.
I need to say this because, again, this is, through the story, people understand what kind of person you are. Even when we announced that I was married, we did this 2 years after I got married. And I've always been, like, really adamant about wanting to keep my romantic, my romantic life very private. Um, you know, and so even this whole time when we had been dating for years, like, nobody knew about it. We've been married for 2 years, nobody knew about it. And then we finally make the announcement. You led the whole thing, and you literally gave me and my wife, I don't know if you remember this, but you gave us,
Yeah.
like, this, like, document, and it was like these case studies of all the different types of, like, the different levels and
Yeah.
ways that you can announce a marriage, and the pros and cons. And it was just like, you want to talk about depth, intentionality, like, just, like, thoughtfulness, right? Like, because if we really wanted to go as viral, it's like you just do it in a way that's like you get the most clicks. Like, we get way more clicks, we get more, like, things like that. Like, but the way that we did it was what was most authentic and most meaningful to me and my wife, not like what could have generated the most revenue or the most, engagement on social. And so just the fact that you cared so much about us, like, that's why, like, that is just one example of just how much you put more thought, way more thought into my marriage announcement than even I did. Like, that's, like, the type of person that you are. And so I appreciate all those things. That type of story shows up all the time. And so, you know, I just really want to have this conversation because I really want people to know that, like, I appreciate you all, that you guys give me so much love and respect and support for my brand and what I do off the court. But there's just been somebody that has been doing all of this that a lot of people don't know about you or what you do. And this is kind of one opportunity where I can share with the world, like, hey, it's not me. I can't take all the credit, and I don't deserve all the credit that I'm getting. So, what is just like a more, like, lighthearted question to end. But like, what's one thing, like, I'll answer for you, you answer for me. Like, what's one thing that people don't know about me, and what's one thing that people probably don't know about you? And I'll start. Your ability to multitask is like is like you could like do a crossword, play Candy Crush, take a super important call, and respond to emails like at the same time, and still know what all four things are happening. Like you can actually function at all four. And I'll be like, I'll be taking a call next to you, and you'll be like finishing something else. I'll be like, there's no way she's. And then like you'll jump in on the call and then give something like a something super wise, and people will be like, dang, yeah, I didn't think about. And I'm like, oh my good. But yo, you're multitasking. It is so funny. It's like I mean, that's you literally you have to be able to do that to be able to like handle the role, the job that you have, but it's out of this world. I'm telling you, I don't think I'm doing it justice by like
Uh,
just talking about
yeah,
it.
I think we both talked about that. Like we might have undiagnosed ADHD, which helps us like context switch so much. But I mean, in a similar vein, your ability to schedule things back to back to back is unparalleled. Like Jeremy will be like, I have a light day today. Like I just gotta go here and there. Like I'll be back. Like the the margin in which you are able to navigate various things. I think both of our examples are probably undiagnosed ADHD, if anything. But it has, we're working on it. But I need to, yeah.
That's why it's
But
like when I finish working out, there's that one guy who just like wants to ask like 5 questions and it puts me back 10 minutes. I'm like, yo, I have like six things
yeah,
back to back to
yeah.
back to back to back. To back. You knock me down 15 minutes, like, and I'm playing, but that's really more my
And my
issue.
lunch is my second lunch, and it's insane how much you can fit in. But yeah, that's a little.
Well,
I
there
don't
you
think
have
people
it.
know that.
Patricia Sun, CEO of JLIN LLC. Thank you for joining us and having this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, like I'm just, you know how much work it has taken us to get to this place. And I think we have both wanted to call it quits on Jalen like so many times. And so I think this is like, it's awesome to have this conversation and just reflect on what we've been through and where we're at now. And yeah, just grateful.
Uh, Likewise, appreciate it. And hopefully you all learned something from the conversation today. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening in today with my convo with Patricia. Here are two takeaways I wanted to highlight. My biggest takeaways and things that I learned from today's conversation. One is like to be grateful for the journey. Like this was kind of a trip down memory lane with the one person that has helped me and my brand out the most in my entire career. For us to kind of go back into the different stories and to kind of retrace the journey and the path that we took. It just reminds me like everybody, all of our stories are unique. And the people that really are there for you, the people that really help you, or the people that really stay by your side, like just make sure, that you go out of your way today to show them some love. That's what I felt like I learned from today was like, man, she's done so much for me. Maybe I take it for granted sometimes, or I don't always, like express just how grateful I am. And so that's something that maybe like tomorrow, when I kind of wake up, maybe I'll find a couple other people that I also feel like, man, you've been really impactful in my life, and send out a couple text messages just to let them know like I really appreciate it. So that's probably the first takeaway. Um, I think the second thing, I mean, I think the second thing that I learned that we talked about, but I kind of relearned it again today, was just this question that me and Patricia always talk about like what is success or what is, the most successful. And oftentimes the dream or the accomplishment or that end goal that you want, that you think will be kind of like your peak or your pinnacle of success, like it's not always everything that you thought it was going to be. But really the relationships, the memories, the experiences, um, and like that is so successful. That is so meaningful. And so, every year as I go into the start of this upcoming season, like there's always an end goal, right? Like it's always kind of like, oh, we want to win a championship. And you're so fixated on this one goal, but there's so many other forms and versions of success. And there's so many things that like, that when I think back on my career, it's not about just the times that I won. It's about the people I met, the people I love, the people that I experienced certain things with, and the memories that we made. And so it's just a great reminder to me, like success is not just winning something or that one accomplishment. There's so much success in enjoying the journey. There's so much success in building a team. Even if at the end you don't win a championship, there's so much success in doing things the right way. There's so much success in having work-life balance and being able to pace yourself and to, be at a place where you're not burnt out and where you're just enjoying and savoring the moments and the exciting and the mundane moments of each day. So that was a great reminder for me. I want to take that in with me as I go forward.